Today you are at the SRQ Hug, all about creating smart content in HubSpot CMS. And really, this should be personalizing how to personalize your site utilizing HubSpot and the HubSpot platform, because we're going to get a little bit more into some ways where you can personalize your site outside of just smart content. So, should be good information. Hopefully, you guys come away with some helpful action items for how you can take the first steps in personalizing your site with some of these features in HubSpot. If you're not doing that already, we will have some time for question and answers at the end. But if you want to pop in any questions you have in the chat as we're speaking, we would love to answer them to the best of our abilities for you guys today. I am creative director at Nextiny Marketing. I have been working with HubSpot and the platform for about 6 years now, specifically in the CMS, but a little bit as a creative director in all of the different creative elements inside of HubSpot, so landing pages, emails, etc. Happy again to be here with you today, and I will let Kara hop in and say her hellos.
Hey everyone, my name is Carrie Inglis. I'm Nextiny's Director of Client Services. I have not spent as much time in the CMS as Megan. That's definitely her domain, but the other areas of the platform I'm very familiar with, and excited to talk about how you can personalize and use smart content in those other aspects of the platform today.
Awesome. So we'll get right into it. So today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what is smart content. If you're not familiar with it, we'll go over the basics. Why use smart content, some reasons for why you should think about implementing this onto your HubSpot assets if you haven't already. What can you make smart? So we're going to go into specifics of what elements of your HubSpot experience, pages, emails, etc. can you make smart? And also some examples of how we have done that in the past and how we recommend maybe doing that for you and your business. We're going to go through some best practices. And then, like I said, at the end, have time for some question and answers. So if you have any questions, please ask them. We would love to answer them for you. So without further ado, what is smart content? Also referred to as dynamic or adaptive content. Smart content is a term for aspects of your website ad that change based on interest or past behavior of the viewer. So basically, what you can do is create an experience that's customized specifically for that viewer and where they are in that moment. So it's a really powerful tool when leveraged correctly, where you can really speak directly to the user using all of the insane amount of data that you get through HubSpot. You can utilize this data to customize and personalize your users' journeys on your site, in your email campaigns, etc. That's going to speak exactly to where they're at. So a really powerful tool. And we're going to obviously get into some details of that today, but smart content. Why use smart content? For the reasons I just said, but also basically you're customizing experiences for your specific user, hypothetically to speak directly to them, where they're at in the buyer's journey, their specific interests, maybe what specific language or country they're coming from. You can create really custom experiences that are going to speak directly to where they're at and the information they care about. This is going to hypothetically, if done correctly, lead to higher engagement, right? People are going to want to stay on your site longer. They're going to want to engage with more of your content because it's really relevant to where they are at, what kinds of information they're looking for, and speaking directly to them, all based on information we have from how they have interacted with the site previously, or how they have their defaults set up in their account for what language they prefer to use, etc. And this ultimately should lead to more conversions for you and your site. You should be getting better quality leads. You should be getting more leads. And at the end of the day, growing your business because you're using better language, creating better experiences for the users on your site to then engage with you, convert, etc. So it's really good stuff. Hopefully today you come away with some simple ways where you can implement this. What can you make smart on your site? So what types of experiences, assets, etc. can you create these personalized experiences from inside of HubSpot? There are quite a few, and there are actually some more outside of this that's not included, but these are the main areas inside of your HubSpot platform and the HubSpot CMS, etc. Emails, websites, landing pages that you can make smart. So you can make text smart. So text on your site, any rich text box, rich text editors, call to actions. You can make any of the call to actions you have set up in your HubSpot account smart. You can create personalization tokens, which you can use in a ton of different places, in email and email subject lines, on landing pages, on website pages. And then also form fields. You can create dependent form fields based on what a user has selected in your form to customize what experience and what information you're getting from them on the form, based on, again, previous form selections. So lots of cool things you can do with this inside the HubSpot platform. We're going to get into each one of these categories today, as well as some examples. So text, this is called smart content inside of HubSpot. If you are looking this, if you're wanting to look up knowledge-based articles, I believe there's also a full HubSpot Academy resource all about smart content that goes into this in depth. So I'd recommend checking that out if you have not already. So any text element on your site, rich text, a lot of times modules in the new themes, if you're using a theme or template from HubSpot, will also have this option. I'll show you exactly where and how you can find it in a couple slides. But how does this work inside of HubSpot? There are some criteria that you can show users different content or different rich text on your site based on specific past behavior or user data or information that you have. So I'll go through the criteria that you can create this smart text, and this applies to the text piece and then also the calls to action. These are the criteria set that you will have access to when making smart roles in both of those experiences. So, ad source, show content to viewers based on the ad they've clicked. So, let's say you have a specific UTM parameters set up for a specific URL from an ad. If they go to it from this ad versus this ad versus this ad, you can create specific text on that page that's going to say something different depending on what ad source they are coming to that page from. Really powerful tool. Again, I'm going to say that a ton, but when used correctly. Country. So display content to your viewers based on their country. This is something that's determined by their IP address for the visitor. So on their computer end. Let's say you have a pricing page, maybe you have different pricing for people in Canada versus the US, and you want to set that up. You can actually do that directly. You can have one pricing page and you can say, if their IP address is in a specific country, show them this pricing. If their IP address is in the US, show them a different set of pricing that's, in a different metric, etc. Device type. This can be a really powerful one, a nuanced one, and a tricky one we don't always recommend using. But let's say you want to show some different content if they're looking at the page or experience from mobile, or if they're looking at it from tablet or desktop. Maybe mobile, you want to have a little bit different images set up so that way the images are easier to read on your mobile device for whatever reason. Maybe you want to slim down the text or increase the size of the text. A lot of this, again, can be done in the CSS, but there are nuanced situations where you might not want to custom code an entire mobile experience. You can do this through creating smart content directly on the page. Again, we'll get into this, but it's important for everyone on the team who's editing and in the page to know exactly where and how you have these roles set up, because it can be very easy for this to go awry very quickly as you are changing pages. But again, device type is a powerful tool to empower marketers to create different experiences just by a couple clicks without having to custom code all of these complex things in the back end of your template. Referral source. So let's say someone comes to your site through organic search or social or direct traffic. Maybe you want to speak to someone coming to your homepage through direct traffic a little differently than you want to speak to someone coming to through your homepage through organic search. Maybe they already have knowledge of your brand. They already know who you are. You might want to tweak or nuance that messaging depending on what source they're coming from. Are they coming from social, etc.? Again, you can create these unique experiences based on information that you have inside the HubSpot platform. So some other ways that you can segment or categorize how you are creating these smart roles are preferred language. So again, you can personalize. This is set within the visitor's web browser. So if they have a specific preferred language inside their web browser, you can create a experience that has a different language and specific rich text on the page. I will caveat this, as well as the country type. In most cases, if you have comprehensive multi-language experiences on your site, so if you have a site that's a pretty big site and you have maybe an English version and a Spanish version or whatever the case may be, I would recommend using the multi-language tool inside of HubSpot for 80 to 90% of these cases. But let's say you are running a specific campaign or a specific event that's maybe relevant to different language speakers, or a one-off email that's leading to a landing page, etc., where this might be the case. In those instances, this can be a really powerful tool. But again, for larger multi-language experiences, the multi-language tool in HubSpot is really awesome. So just that caveat there. But this is an option that you can segment content on your page by. List membership and lifecycle stage are probably the two that we use most internally. And list membership, as you know, if you're familiar with HubSpot lists, there are pretty much endless ways that you can come up with and create lists based on specific properties and contacts and information that you have specific to your company inside of your account. So let's say you have a list of people who, we'll get into this a ton, but who are in a specific user category or a specific buyer's journey on your site. You can create a smart list for that specific category. Then on the page, you can show them specific content based on how you've categorized them or what types of lists you have created for them. So you can create static lists. You can download everyone who's attended our HubSpot workshop. We're going to send them to this landing page, and all the attendees, we're going to show them this information. For those of people who attended, who registered but maybe didn't attend, let's change the H1 to say, sorry, we missed you. Here's the recording. For everyone who we have and we know attended, we can say, thanks for joining us, want to rewatch. So really powerful ways you can use this and to make this content that you are sending out more targeted, more engaging for your viewers. Query parameter or lifecycle stage, same kind of thing. So you can show them different content based off of, are they a subscriber? Are they a customer? Are they evangelist? Are they a sales qualified lead? How do we have them segmented inside of our database? And what kinds of messaging do we want to say to them based on this segmentation? Also query parameters. So based on the visitor's URL. So if it has HubSpot in the URL, maybe we want to show them different content based off query parameter. Again, all of these are powerful tools. Contact, list membership, and lifecycle stage are two that we use most often, and two that we would recommend looking into if this is new to you and not something you have experienced before. Okay, so if you are following along at home or want to know exactly how and where to implement this inside of the CMS, or inside of this is going to be applicable for anywhere you have text on your page. So any of your website pages, your landing pages is going to be where you're going to see this option. Again, not every module, depending on how your site is set up, if it's completely custom coded, if it's a site that's downloaded from a template or the template marketplace, or if it's a site that's maybe migrated, you might not have this option within every module or every element on your page, but certainly for all of the rich text elements that you're using that module out of HubSpot, you will have this. And it's nice to check it in any other modules because a lot of them, like I said, I'm seeing more and more built out of the box with this functionality, which is great. So what you'll do
Hey,
is you'll click
Megan.
it. Yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to let you know, it looks like maybe the slide you have on the screen still isn't the one that you're covering right now. So I just want to make sure everybody's caught up.
Okay. Is it this creating smart content text and then device category?
I'm still seeing the show different content that has ad source, country, device type, etc.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Is it changed now? Thanks for calling that out.
No problem. Nope, I'm still seeing the same slide.
Let me keep going forward. Are you seeing anything different?
No.
All right, let me stop sharing and try to share again. Sorry, guys. Thanks for calling that out, Kara. Okay. Hold,
Okay,
please.
it looks
Let's
like
try.
it's changing for everyone except for me. So I'm glad to hear that. Everyone in the chat is more caught up than me. So that's good to know. As long as everyone else is.
Yeah. Scene one, take two. Let me hop back in here. Okay. So, Kara, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening for you, but give me
That's
the
okay.
green
If
light.
it's working for everyone else, that's all I care about. So now I see. Perfect.
Awesome. All right. So again, this is where you are going to find this editor. You're going to click into, so you can see my little blue box is over top of that pre-qualified rich text box. Once you clicked into that, your little sidebar that pops up, you should see an option for, let me see, smart roll, and then you'll click add. So let's say this is the text I want to modify or optimize on the page. I'm going to go ahead and hover over it, click into it, and then click add. The second screen that will populate is this area where I can set my smart roles. So show different content based on, and then we'll see that list of criteria that I just went through. So you can say, life cycle stages, country, etc. You will select that criteria, set your rules, and then from there you will have your smart role set up. So it's actually as simple as just two buttons. The hardest part is figuring out the logic and what makes sense strategy wise to include on the page, but actually setting this up is fairly simple. How it will work, just so you guys have the context, is it's going to show default text. So let's say I say show anyone who has downloaded this guide in the past, create a list of everyone who's downloaded this guide in the past. I want to show them this content. Anyone who doesn't meet that list criteria is going to see what's called the default content on your page. So this is just for everyone, net new user, unless we have information or this specific data about them. If they have a preferred language selected, then we will show them different content, etc. So you're going to want to make sure you have your default content set up, and then also you can layer in those smart roles on top of that. Once you have a smart role created, and again, this is why we would recommend doing this very strategically, making sure everyone on your team knows where and how and the logic behind the smart roles you have set up, especially with working within smart roles for text, because it can be really easy to miss and just be editing your default content and forget to update your mobile or your device type or your specific list segmented rules. And then you might have outdated or old or messy content on the site because you only updated your default content and didn't go through and change, if you need to, the smart roles you have set up. So once you have this set up on the site, once you click into that same little section, now you will see the smart role option, and you will also see editing for, and then you'll see default content. You'll just drop that down and you can say, edit for this smart role or this smart role that you have set up. You can layer in smart roles, so you can say, show this default content, then show if they're on list A, show this content. If they're on list B, show this content. So you can do multiple smart roles. Again, just be smart and don't over automate this process if and when possible. Have clear strategy and keep it simple. Is best case. Again, make sure you know where these are, because it can be really easy. Sometimes in the past, we have used mobile smart roles to set up simple simple smart roles for on mobile. We want this to be centered, and then we completely change the text on the page or clone that page to create a new page, and on mobile it's saying something completely different because we forgot to update that smart role. So be careful, be cautious and intentional when you're using these. Also, in that preview, so when you create a smart role on a page inside of your content, you'll be able to preview as different smart roles. So you can even preview as a specific contact inside of your database. So make sure you're taking a look. So you can see in that top there, it says previewing smart variation for France. So everyone who is has their IP in France is going to see, the French content. So make sure you're testing these experiences as well once you set them up. And you should be good to go from there. All right, so using smart content, what are some practical ways to use this? It's pretty much endless and limitless, the amount of ways and the ways you can get creative with smart content. But this is an example. We're actually going to talk about the same example 2 times in this presentation. This is how to use it within smart text. So let's say you have, this example is a pet subscription box. And let's say you sell subscriptions for, cat owners, dog owners, and hamster owners. And you have segmented really clearly in your database, and you're sending out an email because you're doing a promotion for a free month of your subscription box. What you can do on that landing page is actually create a smart content based on the list segmented. So your default text can say, get a free pet box this month to treat your animal or to treat your loved one, and then you can say, if we know that they are cat owners, or if we know that they are dog owners, say, get a free pet box this month to treat your dog. And then we can put a picture of a dog in there instead of cat. So this is a really cool way, if you have clean and clear data, that you can be segmenting and targeting using specific. It's just one landing page. You don't have to create multiple different landing pages for each of these categories. You can send the same email out if we have this data, let's customize it to them. Why not use the data that you guys are collecting inside of HubSpot? So one example of how to do this, we're going to talk about how to do this with personalization tokens, but this example will allow you to customize more text on the page, to customize images, etc., all from within the rich text editor. This, again, is another one that you can do two ways, but this is actually not like a call to action image. This is text and an image inside of a website page. And it is obviously targeting people to download a specific guide. So in this example, how we can make this smart is say, if they have already downloaded this guide, let's show them a different guide, or let's show them a meeting calendar link, or maybe they're, we know where they are on the user's journey because they've already downloaded this get started guide. What's the next step we want them to take? Let's not waste website space on someone who this is no longer relevant to them. They've already read the guide, they've already loved the guide. What's the next step we want them to take? Maybe we say, schedule your meeting, or whatever that next call to action, or maybe just a different ebook that's more relevant. Once they've already downloaded the get started, we can do how to run your business guide, etc. So really simple ways you can use content and information you have. Who's downloaded, who's filled out forms on your site. Start using that to create these smart experiences and making site content better and more optimized for your specific user. With that, I will go right into calls to action. Again, this is another piece that you can make smart on your site. It's going to be the same logic criteria that I showed before. So you'll have the same options of, country, device type, list membership, etc., as you did with rich text on the site. You can make calls to action smart. So how to do this, if you are following along on your end, you'll go to marketing lead capture, get into your calls to action. And once you hover over a call to actions, you can say actions, and then you can create a smart version of the specific call to action that you're using on the page. From there, it'll take you to that same criteria selection where you'll say how you want to make this smart, and you'll select your criteria. Then you can go ahead and create your smart version. Once you go into the call to action, once you go back into that same call to action, you will see your different options. Works the same way as text. So you'll have a default version for anyone who sees the site that we do not have associated with the criteria you have selected. And then you will also have whatever smart versions you guys have set up. So again, really powerful, a really easy way to start if you're feeling overwhelmed by everything you're going to hear today. Creating simple calls to actions is a really simple and powerful way to start it. So here's an example. Again, this is a call to action on the page. Same company that I used previously. They're getting a lot of airtime today. Check them out if you haven't. This is a physical therapy franchise company. And what they have is really specific buyer journey and targeted audiences. So they have practice owners, non-clinical owners. So let's say I want to get a physical therapy franchise. Maybe I already own a practice. I want to convert my practice to a franchise. Maybe I'm just an entrepreneur interested in getting into this space, or I'm a physical therapy practitioner or student wanting to potentially open a franchise. Those are three really different segments who have really different needs, specifically with resources they're looking for. So, what this company did was create actually 4 different resource pages. So, they have a generic resource page, then they have 3 research pages specific to what segment the user falls under. And what we've done here is on all of our thank you pages, so they have a ton of awesome resources and guides. On all of the thank you page, it says, thanks for downloading our guide. Here's your PDF. You can download the guide at any time. At the bottom, it says, ready for more? Check out our resources. And what we've done is this is actually a smart call to action that says, if they downloaded a guide on all of our forms to download a guide, it says, how do you identify as a practice owner? Are you just an entrepreneur looking to get into this space, or are you a physical therapy student? So we have that information. Once they filled out the form, they get to this beautiful thank you page. When they click on the resource button, where they will be sent to is the resource page that's specific for them as a user. So if they care about, if they're a practice owner wanting to convert their clinic, they're going to get to that specific resource pages with all the resources specific to who they are and what they might care about. So really cool way to implement this, especially on your thank you pages where you already have, someone's already filled out a form and you have awesome information. use that information to your advantage and send them information, return or further nurture them as relevant as possible. Another way to use smart content CTAs, this is a retirement community, and they have obviously a ton of information kits. A lot of these are downloadables. Some of them are just PDFs. What was happening was they had a lot of their target audience was having to go back to the site, re-download maybe floor plans or whatever it may be, information kits, and they just kept having to fill out the form to re-download and re-download it, and they were getting frustrated because they're like, I've already filled out this form, why do I have to re-download this? So what you're looking at here is the resource page that all of these little links with the PDF next to it are actually smart calls to action. And what they say is if someone's already downloaded this asset, let's send them, instead of sending to the landing page where they have to re-download the form or they have to recomplete the form, let's send them to the thank you page where they can actually just access the floor plans that they've already downloaded. So a really simple edit that reduced a lot of friction for the user. These are all, again, smart calls to action. If they haven't downloaded the form, they will see the landing page. If they have already completed the form, they will see the thank you page. Cool ways to use calls to actions and create them smart. I am going to stop talking and hand it over to Kara, who's going to get into personalization tokens. Kara, are you seeing the right screen here on your end?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. That was all really valuable information. So I'm going to go into personalization tokens, which in some way is going to play a little hand in hand with some of the elements that Megan was addressing, but it's just going to hone in on one specific element, which is where you're actually going to be able to personalize and use some of that data she was referring to service that back to the user. So, getting into how you can use a personalization token, you can only personalize using a personalization token based on information you have stored in HubSpot. So, that's through some sort of HubSpot property, whether that's a default property that you're leveraging, like first name, last name, company name, or whether it's something custom that's unique to your business that you've gathered from the users and are then surfacing back to them as part of the content you're presenting. Those are your options there. So if it's not information you've already captured for somebody, you can't personalize their experience, which is why HubSpot does always allow you to have a default value for anything you're trying to personalize. So think of something really basic, like if you know in an email campaign you want to personalize with first name information. One, I would encourage you to make sure that when you're choosing a personalization option like that, you do have that value for all the contacts you intend to share that campaign with. But if you don't, this default value option is always a good way so that it doesn't look like a personalization gone wrong, right? Like if you just have like hi and then a larger space, that kind of starts to show people that maybe there was an intention for a personalized experience that kind of fell through the cracks. Whereas if you do use a default value like hi friend like Megan has here, or hi there, something that at least gives you the ability to make it familiar language without having to make them feel like they're missing out on part of the experience. So then practical next steps for how you can input these personalization tokens in most of the areas that you're able to personalize. And again, we'll focus on the email element for now. You'll see this clear option here for the word personalize inside your editor. So that's going to give you the opportunity to select the place within the text that you're hoping to personalize the experience and then select what that personalization option is going to be. So depending on how you have your HubSpot CRM set up, how you're storing that data, you can see here in the screenshot that you're actually able to even pull in company information from the company object as it associates the contact. So if you want to just pull in contact information because that's how your data is structured, you can do that. But based on how things are set up, you can even pull from company information to further personalize that way if you're more in the B2B space. And again, this is something you can continue to leverage throughout many different tools. So it's also something that can be important to consider if you've got that sales team that's active in the CRM and adding that into some of the sales templates that they're leveraging as well. So not just using this as a marketing opportunity, but also extending it to your sales team to make their job easier, to make their processes more efficient, but then also making sure that they're more personalized so that they're just having the same opportunity for success on their sales outreach as you are on the marketing side. Okay, so this is getting back to that example that Megan was looking at earlier and talking about the practical next steps of how we can personalize the text using personalization tokens. So, like she mentioned, we have abilities to use the smart content side of things that she went over to update that header image conditionally based on what type of pet you have and some other elements. But where we can use a personalization token in this case is you can see that next to the word your, between the period there, it says pet type. And so if you have a CRM, if you have some sort of pet based business where you know that I have a hamster, Megan has a cat, when I come to the page, if you store that information appropriately in our current records, then you would know that for me on this page, it would say, treat your hamster or treat your cat, depending on whether I was visiting the page or whether Megan was. So lots of different options here that you can leverage for personalization based on the type of information you're capturing about your audience, and then that you're keeping up to date for personalizing your campaigns. Okay, so another way to leverage some personalization and even help you gather more qualified information about your audience is through dependent fields on your HubSpot website form. So, this is something that you have the ability to set up your logic initially so that your forms are working more efficiently for you once they're launched. And so, what I mean by that is if there are certain criteria that you know it's important to customize the experience based on answers people are providing on the form, or if you know there's certain cues that allow you to gather more information for certain types of people than other, you can go ahead and think through that strategy so that you can make those forms work for you depending on those different types of people, rather than just having that static form that's the same for everybody, knowing that your follow-up questions for certain segments are going to vary once you get in touch with them. If you can save time and provide a better user experience by capturing that information conditionally on the front end, it's going to help you with generating more qualified leads, having more streamlined processes so that you can make the most of those conversions moving forward. So, what that practically looks like is if you're in the form editor, you're going to start by putting in those basic properties that everyone's going to see, because that's the first step. Like, what's the universal version of your form? And then are there opportunities to make your form smart and add in more robust questioning based on conditional logic? And so that can vary from something super complex and complicated or something really simple. And so this example here is something fairly simple because we're starting with even something as simple as depending on their country. And we may say, okay, if you're in the US, then the next thing we need to know is your state. But if you're in Canada, we need to know your province. So just customizing that experience so that they feel that the experience is customized to them. And that also helps with that conversion rate too. So if you think that if you're just putting like country and state, regardless, again, most people, even if their country is Canada, they may go ahead and put their province and state. But some people may decide, like, well, I don't have a state, that's not applicable to me, and then they leave the form. So the more you can customize the experience, the more you can hopefully get that increased conversion and people going all the way through and completing your forms. This is more of a complex example here, and it actually ties back to that business Megan was mentioning earlier. That's the physical therapy franchising company that has those different segments. So again, as she mentioned, they've got anywhere from entrepreneurs just looking to get into the medical space with no medical experience, as well as physical therapy practitioners. So as you can imagine, the types of questions that would come for those different segments are going to be very different. So if you're a physical therapist, they have types of questions like, okay, what's the name of your practice? How many practitioners do you have, et cetera. Whereas for entrepreneurs, it might be more like, what's your liquid cash situation, different things that they would need to know to understand if it's an appropriate investment for that segment. So being able to go ahead for more of your forms that skew towards a sales qualified conversion, if you can go ahead and build out those experience and get those qualifying or disqualifying questions answered ahead of time, that gives you a better understanding of the quality of leads that you're generating on your site that you can then pass on to your sales and operations teams. Okay, so now we're going to get into some best practices now that we've gone through all these different options of how you can get started and what you can personalize. We want to talk about how you should be personalizing and what to consider as, do's and don'ts along that way so that you're setting yourself up for success, because ultimately you're wanting to personalize to add value and not to detract from the experience. So just based on what we've seen in the past and mistakes that we've made along the way, we want to make sure that we're surfacing some of that information for you guys so that you understand what to think about as you're going down this journey. So obviously, with what to do as part of this, keep it simple. Start small. Start with one experience, and make sure that it's something that you feel comfortable personalizing and something that you feel would add value to the user experience and not disrupt it. I think that's especially to keep in mind now that data privacy is more of a conversation than ever globally. Thinking about, if I personalize based on someone's first name, that might seem fairly harmless, but if I personalize based on something a little too granular and specific, that might seem disruptive to their experience, even if they've supplied me with that information in the past. If I'm being a little too specific in the information I've stored about that person, it may be more of a detractor than a value add. So just kind of being intentional about what we're personalizing and being human about it and thinking, what would we find to be a delight in the experience versus what may be a little bit of a turn off if we saw something through our experience. And then, of course, making sure you're keeping your data clean. And this can look like a lot of different things. When we talked about personalizing based on first name in the beginning of this conversation, that can be something as simple as if you're going to personalize based on first name in an email campaign, using as part of your list criteria, first name is known, so that you actually have the ability to only send the email to people who have a first name value. And it can look as complex as making sure that you have standardized data formatting so that your first name is always in standard format with the first letter capitalized and the rest lowercase, rather than some in all caps, some in all lowercase, right? Just making sure you have some data consistency so that what you're personalizing on doesn't stand out as something different than the rest of the copy in your email or whatever campaign that you're trying to personalize. And with that too comes with making sure that you have a clear strategy for how you're personalizing and why you're personalizing, not necessarily just personalizing because you can, but being intentional about what you're hoping to add to that experience by personalizing. Back to Megan's point about what can go wrong with maybe something being smart content on the desktop view versus the mobile view, keeping a really clear documentation on what you are personalizing and what you're using smart content for, so that as these changes come up, your team is aware that they not need to not only consider what they can see as part of the default content of that page, but other smart elements so that they can make sure they're consistently updating every version of that asset, not just the part that they can most readily see. And then track your success. See how smart content is working for you. See how people are engaging with those different elements, and figure out, is it something that's truly adding value to the process, or is it something that may not be necessarily working for your business, and find other opportunities to test out smart content in other ways.
I'll get into what not to do, and a lot of this will parallel a lot of what Kara just mentioned. So, a lot of people get really excited about smart content and all the capabilities that you can do, and they overuse the features and the tools that we have in HubSpot. Be really strategic about what and how you're using this. Everywhere on the page, you don't want to just say like, "Welcome back to the site, Megan." Hi, Megan. You don't even think through. Keep the experience really human. Simple is always better when creating these experiences, and then learn from it. Like Kara said, track how they're performing and optimize the ways you were using this over time. But start simple, keep it simple. Another thing here is, don't personalize on irrelevant criteria. Just like Kara mentioned, just because you have certain data stored internally doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be front facing. We are really aware. It's a thin line between having really customized content that feels really relevant to me, and maybe something that feels like overstepping personal boundaries, and or just something that's not necessarily relevant that I don't need to see custom content based on. So be really strategic as you're thinking through how and where to utilize these tools. They are more advanced tools, and take some intentionality to implement. Then forget to test or manage your content. Again, this is most of the time where we see this go wrong. You're sending out an email with a first name personalization or a company name personalization, and not everyone has a company name, or your company name data is organized really messy. Maybe it's all caps, maybe some of them are not caps, and it feels like a really jarring experience because it's like, "Hi, Megan," in all capital letters, and it feels like you're screaming at me. So be aware and test the experiences you're setting up, and then manage it accordingly, and make sure everyone on the team knows the strategy, when, where, and how you're using these tools, so that things can be updated properly and accordingly. Um, if you are overwhelmed by all of the different ways you can use smart content and you can personalize inside of HubSpot, we just have 4 simple ways that you can go and test and play with this on your site or on your assets today. Personalize your email subject lines. Maybe you're sending out, like we talked about, that pet type experience where you have really defined data and you can say free pet box this month for your cat, and you can actually do that in your email subject line. Or maybe where relevant, you can include a first name or a company name in your subject line. Really simple way if you have the data to be using it to increase your open rate, click-through rate, etc. So think about that as a simple way to start personalizing your email subject line. Secondly, create smart or personalized calls to action. So simplest way, if you have a call to action on all of your blog posts, on the bottom of all of your blogs, which hopefully you do, um, create smart versions of those that say if someone's already downloaded or already clicked through this call to action, let's show them something else because this is no longer necessarily relevant for them. So really simple ways to start that, especially for all the downloadables on your site. Maybe send them directly to the thank you page if they have already clicked on a certain call to action instead of sending them to the landing page again. Third, add a dependent field to your highest converting form. So, can you be collecting more relevant or more accurate data based on your user's journey? Like Kara mentioned, if they are a current clinic owner, let's ask them different questions. Let's remove the questions that are not relevant for them from this form, and create those experiences. So, go back and take a look at what your highest converting form is. Don't overcomplicate the form, but if and where relevant, create some dependent fields there. Lastly, create a personalized sales email template. So this is a really cool way if you have, again, clean data, to create those sales email templates where you can fill in personalized content using those personalization tokens to say, hi, first name, you are at this company or whatever it may be. Really fun and simple way to get started playing with these tools. Hopefully, this gives you some things where your brain's starting to go and think there's some ways you can utilize these tools inside of HubSpot for your company. With that, we want to open it up for questions. Karen and I will be hanging out if you guys have any questions, smart content related, or just HubSpot related, marketing related. We would love to answer what we can and pass you off to someone who can answer it if we are not able to. But we will be hanging out until the end. I think we have till 11:30. Is that correct, Kara?
Yeah, that's
Um,
correct.
so we'll be hanging out. We'd love to answer any questions that you guys have. Go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we will keep our eyes out there for now.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And even if you have a page that you're like, hey, like, how would you recommend making this smart? Again, we have the next 15 minutes. So go ahead and drop it in chat and let's go through some of those examples and talk about it while we're here together.
I'll get us kicked off, Carol. While people are thinking of questions, do you have a favorite way, or what's your number one go-to way of everything we've talked about today? What is the smart content tool inside HubSpot you use the most?
I think personalization tokens are just the most accessible. I think of all the ways to get started, it probably seems the most accessible because it allows you to see that value of personalizing experiences without feeling like you have to get too technically in the weeds, right? Like setting up a smart call to action is probably the second easiest thing to do. And so people are looking to add a little bit more sophistication and smart areas. And I would get into that. I understand that the smart content side of things feels like that whole extra level of just having to manage a lot of
Mhm.
information and have that technical proficiency. So for me, that would be
Yeah.
like the tiering of how to get started.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that it's a very powerful tool because you're not limited to HubSpot selections if you have custom or personalized objects or field inside of your CRM. You can utilize those tools. Like pet type is obviously not a default value,
Right.
but if that's relevant for your business, you can get really nuanced there and you're not really handicapped by HubSpot's options. So yeah, definitely a cool one to use.
Agreed. That's awesome.
Looks like we've got some people saying they're going to start digging into smart content tomorrow. So that's exciting. That's a win for us.
That's very awesome.
Mhm.
And if you guys come up with questions along the way as you're implementing these, please feel free to reach out to Megan and I just so that we can continue to support you through this journey of leveraging smart content.
I'm going to put both of our emails in the chat. If you want to message us directly, if there's something we said you had a specific question on, we would be happy to be a resource for you guys as much as possible.